Welcome back to today's Explainer, everyone. If you took even a quick glance at the headlines for July 23rd, 2026, you probably felt like you were drinking from a fire hose of global chaos. Am I right? It is a very heavy news day. But hey, rather than getting overwhelmed by all that noise, our goal today is to extract the signal. We're going to dig right into the data, connect the dots between military actions, economic shocks, and future policies, and map out exactly how the systems shaping our world are shifting right under our feet. Okay, let's dive into this. We've organized today's incredibly disparate events into a really clear thematic roadmap for you. First, we'll look at the Middle East escalation. Then, global trade and tech. Number 3 is regional conflicts and security. 4, health crises and disasters. And finally, energy policy and future.
Let's jump right into Section 1, Middle East escalation, the trigger point. We're starting off with some of the most globally destabilizing news out there today. Right now, we're seeing a coordinated, multi-front squeeze on one of the absolute most vital regions in the world. U.S. Central Command just executed its 13th consecutive night of airstrikes. They've been hitting military infrastructure across Avaz, Bandar Abbas, and Qashm Island. But this escalation isn't just happening on land. Out on the water, the IRGC Navy seized and blocked 3 oil tankers right in the Strait of Hormuz, leaving one of them actually on fire. And then, a bit further south, Houthi forces struck 2 Saudi tankers in the Red Sea as they aggressively enforce a brand new maritime embargo. The geography here is absolutely critical, you guys. Multiple strategic choke points are being squeezed all at the exact same time.
And this brilliantly illustrates the immediate economic shockwave we're facing. This isn't just some geopolitical maneuvering happening a world away. It's an immediate shock to the global economy and, for sure, eventually your wallet. Because with key shipping lanes and energy infrastructure under direct fire, the market's absolutely panicked. Brent crude violently surged right past that $101 per barrel mark, and West Texas Intermediate trailed closely behind at nearly $93. So we are literally watching real-time financial fallout from physical disruption.
And that economic anxiety is being deliberately stoked by statements just like this one. Iran's Qatam al-Anbiya command issued a really stark, direct ultimatum. They stated they would halt all West Asian oil exports and target regional energy grids if the U.S. hits Iranian national infrastructure. This statement draws a completely direct line between the military strikes we're seeing and the severe future threat of plunging an entire region's energy grid straight into darkness. So you might be wondering, how is the United States government handling this executive military action domestically? Well, the answer is profound. Razor-thin gridlock. Over in the House of Representatives, a war powers resolution actually passed, aimed at halting executive military action against Iran, but by an incredibly narrow margin of 214 to 208. But then, over in the Senate, that very same measure was blocked in a super tight 47 to 49 vote. It is a vivid picture of a deeply divided legislature wrestling with the scope of war powers during a highly volatile international crisis.
Moving on to Section 2, global trade and tech, defensive moves. We're now seeing international trade being leveraged essentially as a defensive weapon. The Trump administration just dropped some sweeping new 10% to 12.5% import tariffs that affect goods from 60 different countries. Now, the officially cited reason for this is forced labor enforcement. But there are some highly strategic exemptions at play here that we need to talk about. Goods covered under CUSMA, that's the North American Trade Agreement, and certain specialized products get a free pass. So this effectively draws a strict economic perimeter around favored trading partners. And while those trade barriers are going up, domestic security agencies are battling the immediate ripple effects of these global tensions. Some recently unclassified Canadian intelligence just revealed the successful disruption of 4 ISIS-inspired extremist plots. These were targeting Jewish community sites right within Canada. Crucially, the intelligence report explicitly warned that these domestic terror threats are directly linked to the Middle East conflicts we were literally just talking about. It's a pretty sobering reminder of how fast localized geopolitical strife crosses oceans to threaten community security worldwide. But defensive moves aren't just about borders or trade. They're also about future technological supremacy. Check this out. The White House just pledged an absolutely astonishing $5 billion for the Genesis mission. This is a massive federal cash injection, and it's aimed at rapidly accelerating AI infrastructure and scientific research across U.S. national laboratories. It's a very deliberate, high-stakes pivot to ensure national dominance in the next big frontier of technology, well before the next global crisis even hits. Which brings us to Section 3, Regional Conflicts and Security, the Human Cost. So,
While billions of dollars are being poured into tech, and these big trade wars make all the front page headlines, we're actually seeing a massive wave of displacement and localized collateral damage all over the world. In Sudan's civil conflict, a drone strike in Badia Blue Nile state just claimed multiple civilian lives. Over in India, the fallout from a senior police officer's death in Kashmir resulted in security forces demolishing the homes of 2 local militants in the Anantnag district. And along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, authorities repatriated a staggering 4,200 Afghan refugees in just a single day. These aren't just isolated incidents, you guys. They weave together a much broader story of human upheaval, displacement, and really severe local friction that's playing out entirely under the radar.
Let's look at Section 4, Health Crises and Disasters, Global Toll.
That human toll we just talked about is heavily compounded when we look at how global emergency systems are being pushed to their absolute limits today. Just looking at this table, we've got agricultural processing shutdowns across Mexico and the US at Taylor Farms due to a severe cyclospora outbreak. Then there are deadly infrastructure and climate disasters across India, including a really tragic hydropower methane explosion on the Teesta River in Sikkim that left 12 dead and 13 trapped in toxic gas. Also in India and Assam, relentless monsoon floods have claimed 31 lives and affected 500,000 people across 16 districts. Add to all of that a devastating cholera outbreak in Borno State, Nigeria. According to an MSF report, that outbreak has killed 200 people in just 2 months. Across the board, fragile infrastructure is just violently colliding with severe health and environmental crises.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 5, Energy Policy and Future Looking Forward.
Despite all these immediate crises we've covered, major powers are actively mapping out long-term strategies to insulate themselves from the exact kind of shocks we were looking at earlier. China's National Energy Administration has officially rolled out its 15th five-year renewable energy plan, which covers 2026 to 2030. This roadmap sets some really aggressive milestones: massive wind expansion, widespread solar implementation, and comprehensive grid modernization. What we're seeing here is a very deliberate race to completely reshape their energy landscape. They're aiming to drastically reduce their vulnerability to the global fossil fuel choke points that are quite literally currently on fire. And that brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. We started our journey today looking at the Strait of Hormuz, tankers on fire, and global economies trembling over the price of a barrel of crude oil. And now we end by looking at massive national roadmaps for wind, solar, and modernized grids. So how will today's violent conflicts over fossil fuels contrast with tomorrow's ambitious renewable energy roadmaps? Will the crises of today accelerate the clean tech of tomorrow, or is geopolitical friction going to slow down this vital transition? It's a really complex question, but having the facts structured clearly right in front of us is absolutely the best way to start finding the answer. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.